I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey everybody, welcome to the show tonight. You guys, tonight I got a really cool guest. I got Joe, and Joe's from Missouri. Now, Joe is also one of the research partners of Miguel from Sasquatch Theory. And I'm really excited to talk with Joe tonight. He's going to get into where it all began for him and some of the other encounters and things that he's been witnessing or encountering, and where his research and his encounters have taken him as of today and where possibly tomorrow. So you guys, again, thank you so much for supporting the show. If you've had an encounter you'd like to come on the show, please shoot me an email at the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. Again, the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. You guys, without further ado, let's bring our guest on. Joe, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Daniel?
Doing good. Hey, man, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I believe you saw my thing on Reddit and we communicated there, and here we are. So
yeah, it's kind of nice. I'm a bookworm by nature, so I like to read. I do watch a lot of some of the better podcasts. Some of them are a little crazy all over the map, but yeah, I do engage with people who seriously engage on discussing Bigfoot things, and you reached out and asked a lot of questions, and I gave you a couple answers, and then we took off from there. So
yeah,
thank you for reaching out. I do like to talk to people who are willing to engage and learn. If someone's got an open mind, they want to learn.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot to learn.
Yeah. When I first started this journey, I was 100% flesh and blood. That's all it is. There's no other aspects to it. And then as I started listening to other stories and podcasts and reading other encounters and reports, I noticed that there was a little more, more to these creatures. So my mind is been opened up. I'm still in the whole, I'm in the box of they're still flesh and blood. What I witnessed when I was 12 years old was 100% flesh and blood. And there's no woo factor to it. Right. But again, in this category, the world of probability is wide open. So what first got you into the subject of cryptids, Bigfoot? What was the one thing that really made you go, you know what, I'm really going to get into this? What was that about?
Well, I'll say this. My very nature, I was in the Marines years ago, trained in aviation. I'm pretty intense of a bookworm kind of person. I like digging into things. If I'm going to study something, I'm going to dig into it. I don't like partial answers and hearsay. I need to see information. So I also have, I have college education, and I dug really hard into books in college, and I don't like doing things, pardon the French, but half-ass. I want the truth, the whole truth. Let's get to the bottom of this. So I had done a lot of things after the Marines, a lot of outdoor things. Never bumped into these things. Never went to one of these accidental hot spots or activity areas. I pretty much stayed on typical trails. Did some deer hunting, things like that. But then I joined a hiking group. One of my friends founded Missouri's largest hiking group, Ozark Trail Section Hikers and Backpackers. I joined that group, and we like 15,000 something people are in it now. A lot of people, but we have a small core group, and one of the guys was doing some of these off-season fall winter hikes backcountry, not on trail. So we're exploring the Ozarks, places that are not on the map. So we're doing backcountry bushwhacking when there's no snakes and ticks and spiders and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Fall and winter is a perfect time. So we're starting to go to places, and I just started noticing, almost like on the second or third hike, like all these structures all over the place. We're used to dealing with tents and things like that, but I'm familiar with what bushcraft is. Bushcraft, man-made survival structures. And these were just so much more crude and primitive than that. And even the Native American teepees and things that they make are nicer. I'm just seeing all these crude structures everywhere. You know, the arches and big trees just snap 90 degrees. And it was obvious somebody was manipulating the woods. And then I saw teepees and things like that. So I just started photographing with my smartphone and GPS tagging all of these things. Ding, ding, ding. I accumulated like 9 months worth of these structures. And the whole time I'm saying, who's in the bushcraft club out here? Who's building all this stuff?
Right.
So I don't know if you've ever heard of Google reverse image search, where you take any image you want on your phone and you just, you know, you figure out where it came from, and similar images around start showing up on the screen. And well, everything pointed me to Bigfoot and Sasquatch and BFRO.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I kind of reached out to the BFRO and I said, let's have a talk about these structures. And you know, Ron Bowles, Larry Newman from Missouri, from the BFRO, they said, yeah, we got a lot of them in Missouri and we got expeditions everywhere. If you want to hear one, come on out, join us.
Yeah.
I had never heard them before. So I went on my first expedition with them. I heard them for the first time, the first or second night, very loud, very far, just incredible sound. I've been to Canada and all over North America. I'd never heard a scream and yell like that.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, it just got deeper. I got into the structures initially for my first year or so, and I continued to monitor them. But I then wanted to hear them up close because I couldn't get any decent audio from anybody on these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to the top experts in the BFRO on how to capture the best audio possible. And that's kind of what I've done for Missouri. I've gone out in the living rooms of these things, if you will, during the daytime in the activity areas. And I've triangulated on them and got some really nice close-up audio. So that's kind of what I do really love capturing audio because they don't mind it. You can monitor them for a very long time, get to know the clan a little better. You can hear the vocalizations, the pitches, and you can, sometimes the males are a little aggressive. You can hear them growling and huffing and breaking trees and things like that. So you're dealing typically with, half the time seems like you're dealing with a pretty mean alpha, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They do like to protect their clan. So from there, after doing that and getting a lot of recordings on multiple areas that I established on my own, it got to the point where things were getting a little scary. I was getting closer and closer. And, you know, Joe, U.S. Marine here,
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what I'm going after.
Yep.
I got a high power, long range thermal. I got a parabolic. And I pretty much got to the point where, okay, these things are just getting too rambunctious. You know, I'm gonna go out and meet some of my other comrades in the Ozarks. We have a little meetup in Southeast Missouri and in other parts of the state. But I basically said I'm looking to start a research team. Miguel showed up at the same event. He's like, "Me too. Let's do it."
Mm-hmm.
So me, Miguel, and a couple of other guys, Steve and Bill from South Central Ozarks, we banded together and kind of to figure, let's just divide and conquer, and let's establish several research areas, and let's watch each other's backs.
Oh, for sure.
So me and Miguel have hit the bush quite a bit more than the other guys. They've seen him on and off over the years, and they help us in the southern part of the state. But me and Miguel have kind of branched out. We do a lot of exploring of new areas, in and out of state, and we monitor the areas here. We got leads coming in left and right, and I've got my own research areas still, which are still hopping. So we got more reports than we know what to do with. Let me just put it that way. And it doesn't take long to really get to the point where, hey, you know, you either get more people or just back off a little bit and pick and choose, cover what you can. So anyway, I did decide to focus on them. And I guess it was before I joined Miguel, I had 2 sightings in South Central Ozarks. Big one. First one I saw on a trackway along the North Fork River. And it was at night, about 9:30 at night. It was in October. And it was, well, that thing must have been about, I'd say 90, maybe 100 yards out, standing on the edge of a pine tree, kind of leaning out real slow, in and out, in and out, just leaning in and out. So I looked at it and I'm like, okay, that's definitely not a deer. Whoever the heck is standing down there is huge. So I didn't bother to, break from my position and go tromping down that trackway. So I just monitored, I watched it, and I did film it on my thermal, but it was more of a distant shot. 2 years later, I went to the same exact spot, same time of year, and I was with a couple of other guys, and I saw one like 40 yards from us, a lot closer to where we were last time. And it was hanging from a tree. Let's say the trackway's off to this side. It was hanging from a tree and just leaning out and just swinging its arm, just like back and forth, just swinging its arm, like it was trying to look out around the trees and see and they were trying to look at us. They knew we were parked in this area, and I was hiding behind my Jeep. I got a black Jeep, so I'm hiding behind the Jeep, and I'm watching this thing, and it's just swinging its arm, big full view. It was just a huge, looked like a male. With the thermal, it's kind of hard to tell genitalia, but it had enough hair. Everything was masked. It looked like I'd say a big Chewbacca, just a big, flowing, tall, hairy Sasquatch, your typical build of a Sasquatch. And it was just swinging its arm out. And what amazed me, that was my first time I really saw one move. And it was just moved so smoothly. Everything in my head, I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm at the zoo, because you ever see the spider monkeys in the cages? And all the other primates, a lot of them, it's like fluid. They're just like liquid. They slither around. They're so graceful. Even the gorillas move. They just glide over everything. So this thing was just standing there, gliding, flexing itself, trying to get a better eye on us. And I'm hiding with the thermal, which doesn't give off any light. For everybody, to get a thermal. Don't bother with an infrared cheap night vision scope. Get a thermal and hide when you use it. Don't stand out there. You want to hide and don't let them see you. You're going against the peekaboo champion, so you got to beat the peekaboo champion. So that's what I did. I'm hiding, and I look at this thing, and I'm just staring at it, and I'm just amazed. So that was my first time seeing one, and I must have watched that thing for a couple of minutes, and then I did a whoop, just like that. I gave a loud whoop right at it, and it just froze. It instantly froze. It stopped swinging back and forth from that tree, and it slowly retreated into the woods. I'm talking, it took 2 minutes for this thing to just move its body behind the tree. It was like super slow, frozen molasses, moving very slowly. But I had a parabolic, and I was telling the guys I was with, I'm like, okay, it's bugging out, it's moving into the woods, but let's listen to it. So I aimed my parabolic at it, and I could hear these feet steps crunch, crunch. It was cutting into the forest, down to the river, down the ridge. And we went on a trail and paralleled this thing on this trail. And it was a crazy thing to do in hindsight. Try to parallel and go walk a Sasquatch out down the woods. Yeah, kind of a novice encounter, if you will. But we did it. We walked parallel with this thing as it was cutting back into the woods. And we heard this thing crunching. We could hear its steps for, I guess maybe about 3-4 minutes. We heard this thing tracking through the forest. But it dropped steeply down to the ridge, down to the river. And we didn't go that far. We kind of got to a point where, like, I don't want to go down there. I don't know where this thing's going, but we couldn't keep up with it either. And it was cutting through the forest. So that was my second encounter. After that is when I started engaging with Miguel, the Sasquatch theory folks. We have our official group name is Missouri Bigfoot Patrol. But, we're just kind of an informal research team. And we tag team with other researchers from across the region. Some come from out of state. So we if someone has the skills and the interest, typically we'll go out with people who are good woodsmen who can take care of themselves in the forest. We don't have to worry about them. Kind of like backpacking and hiking, that hiking group I was telling you about. We train people. We make sure they're trained to survive. Basic, intermediate, and advanced backpacking, and then survival. first aid and all that stuff. Do you know how to use a firearm? We got mountain lions. I got mountain lions around my ranch here. Feral hogs. And there's other predators in the forest, so you really should have a firearm, especially if you're just one or two people out there. There's just a lot of activity. So anyway, moving forward, had some additional encounters. I forgot one encounter. This is after I joined up with Miguel and the rest of the guys. I had an encounter off the Merrimack River, to the research area closest to me. It was a late afternoon encounter. It was an area that I had heard about, read about, where there was bow hunters in there getting sticks thrown or rocks thrown at them, and they were getting screamed at. And they're like, "We're never going back in the woods again." They got scared out of the woods. So I said to myself, "That's the perfect research area. I'll go in there." So yeah, you got to have a little, if you like adventure, Jurassic type adventure. This is one of those areas you're going to get that. And when I was in the Marines, I did a safari in Africa, big animals over there too. So it wasn't too much of a shock, believe it or not, to do Bigfoot research, because there's gorillas in Africa and there's other big animals over there. So I was like, okay, North America's got a big crazy animal. Let's do it. So that's kind of my mindset on this whole thing as far as big animals. But anyway, daytime encounter I had, I researched this area that had all the, Google Maps, Google Earth, had all the check boxes for a good research area. It was off trail. It was in very heavily wooded area, like Vietnam thick, close to a very nice stream, right on a power line trackway, and a lot of wild game all over the place. So it's checking all the boxes. Plus, bow hunters were screamed and roared at and had rocks thrown at them. Traumatized bow hunters. So I'm like, perfect, let's do it. So I went in there, daytime, late afternoon, at 3:34 in the afternoon, and I had a GPS coordinate set for a very specific spot that I wanted to go to hang a recorder. And I just started marching through the forest, bushwhacking, dodging weeds. And this was in the spring. And I set my recorder there. And about halfway on my way, just bushwhacking through this area, something just went crazy off to my right, probably about 70, 80 yards off to my right. Trees started snapping. You hear deer run. They'll run through the brush. Okay, I got deer around here. But when you hear these things, it sounds like things they tear things apart when they get frustrated. So they'll start snapping sticks and tree branches. And I hear all this commotion off to my right. And then about 5 minutes later, I paused when I heard that just to listen to it. 5 minutes later, I'm continuing on, and I hear a little more ruckus. They didn't move from their area. They were still behind me, but then I heard these owls. It's the first time in the daytime I've heard owls just go very loudly, and three different owls went off. And I'm like, that was weird. What's up with these owls in the daytime? Oh, well, stay focused. Me, I'm focused on stuff. Let's continue on. I ignored the owls and I continued on, hung my microphone. I don't know if I got it laying over here. Pause. I'll get it real quick. Typical long duration recorder. Bigfoot researchers will be familiar with that. It's got a timer in it, comes on at night. So I hang these recorders in the forest and I triangulate on where they're hanging out. I pick up the strongest decibels on whichever microphone gets closest, and I inch my way closer to wherever the clan is hanging out. And then I hang in this right in the middle of their living room, all super high up, and I like to hear them scream and yell and make all kinds of noise. So I was hanging one of these recorders that you just saw, and once I hung that recorder, I went downwind and looped way wide through the forest, like way around where I just went through, and looped up behind the area where I wanted to go, basically try to come up on their 6 o'clock position, if you will. So I went way down, way along, and back around through all this Vietnam thick brush, and then I got to an open area where the trees, it was just nothing but trees. So I got out of the brush in this big open area, and I had the wind in my nose, like I'm deer hunting, right? Wind in my nose, and I'm thinking, okay, if I can sneak up on these things, and I had no clue if I could, but I was going to try. I'm going to sneak up on him and see what I can, see if I can get at least see one. So I'm continuing on very slowly, walking in. It's springtime. The ground's a little bit wet and damp, not a lot of crunchy. So I'm moving fairly stealthily through the forest, kind of pausing behind small bushes, occasional trees. But overall, I don't have all these weeds to deal with. And I'm getting closer to the area where I heard the owls, but the opposite side of where the owls, where I heard them from. So I just want to come on and see what's up with what's going on over here. What's with all the trees snapping? What's with the owls? So I'm working on that area, working my way to it. And then over off to my right, in the direction I'm heading, but a little off to my right, with the wind in my nose, something just absolutely bolted out. Like, I'd say it's probably about 40 yards right in front of you, and stopped. It was standing. It ran across and just stood behind these 3 trees that were growing right side by side. And each of these trees was probably about like that, maybe about 12, 14 inches. And they were just growing up side by side like that. And this thing was just standing up. It was probably I'd say it was about 7 foot off the ground. And it just stood there and just stared at me. I had a stare down with this thing for like 5 minutes. And I'm looking at it. And I got a Camelback on my back with my thermal in it. And I had my 45 in there, just personal safety. Wasn't even looking to even think about my 45. I just wanted to really get a closer look at this thing's face, because I couldn't see its face up close as it was hiding behind this tree. It was peekabooing, behind that tree. So I'm staring at this thing for 5 minutes, and I had a little iWatch, Apple iWatch on my hand. I sent a text to the guys on my research team. I said, guys, here's where I'm at. Just in case something happens to me, I want you to know where I'm at. But I'm having a stare down right now with these things. It was speech to text, and I'm whispering into my phone. I ding, hit the send button. So I gave it another few minutes, and then I reached down to my side. Very slowly, I slid my Camelback backpack off my back down to the ground, and I slowly hunched down a little bit, and I unzipped it, got my thermal out of its case, raised the thermal up, just barely sticking, maybe. Sorry for the technical interruption there. So yeah, I'm having a stare down with this thing. But what looked up to be about a 7 foot Squatch, not a huge big one. I'd say this was probably a juvenile, a healthy juvenile. A juvenile's big. It's bigger than a human, but it wasn't the big, super broad, heavy, loud stomping ones that I've heard through audio and seen at a distance. This was a surprise one that ran out, and we're having a stare down. I wanted to zoom in closer on its face behind those 3 trees, and I pulled that thermal out of my bag. And as I cleared my bag by just a few inches, I got my hand, and I got that black thermal monocular in my hand. As soon as I raised that thermal, this thing dropped on all fours and just Tasmanian devil, fastest animal I've ever seen. I had never seen them run that fast ever. I just didn't know how fast they were, but I witnessed for the very first time how fast they are. This thing was just a blur. It gone. It tore off through the forest faster than any animal I've ever seen run. And then I've seen deer run full throttle, and at least they're not blurry. You can kind of see, there's the white tail. That's a deer. Okay, yeah, this is just dropped on all fours and just hightailed it like the Tasmanian devil. So once it ran, I just froze, and I stood there for about another 10 to 15 minutes, not knowing where this thing went. It was around the edges of this wooded area. It was very heavy vegetation again. So I didn't know where this thing went, if others were going to join it. So I just stood there, froze, amazed at what happened. I did get my 45 out of the bag. I put it on my hip. I didn't know if they were going to come back, if one or more of these things was going to come back. So I put my 45 on my hip. and had my thermal in my front pocket ready to go. And I actually had it in my hand. I'm like, if this thing, if comes out, if any of these others come out, I've got to get this thing recorded. So I waited, and it was just very quiet. Didn't hang around. This thing just took off. So I figured, well, I'm a sitting duck just standing here. I'm gonna head back to my Jeep. I got what I need. I got my recorder, and I hung the recorder. The following week, I went back and got it back. So I went back to this spot the following week, pulled that recorder, and I consider this one of my best audio recordings ever. One of the first good ones that I got. I got 6 howls or screams in a row. So I placed that recorder on a Sunday afternoon, just before dark, and I went in the following Sunday to get it. And the vocalizations, the way I interpreted them was somebody found our area. It was almost like a, hey, somebody's here, someone's discovered our hangout. That's the way I've always interpreted these vocalizations. These screams sounded like a female because they were a higher pitch, but long screams and howls. And I got them on my SoundCloud channel. I'll never forget hearing that for the first time. And so that was from the previous Sunday. That Sunday night recording, as soon as it got dark, they just let loose after I left. That's what happened. So it was perfect. I had that encounter. I had that one jump out in front of me, and then I just got out of there, came back the following Sunday. And by the way, every time I went back in there to get my recorder, on my left or my right, usually off to my right or back along this creek, I'm hearing they're breaking stuff, just pushing small trees over. Several times they pushed trees over, not huge ones, and they were off in the distance. They seem to keep about a 70, 80 yard buffer, sometimes 60 yards if you're lucky, if you sneak up a little closer, but they generally like to keep a buffer of 70 to 80 yards from humans. And they do stay in the thick areas. They don't want you to see them. But they're just making a ruckus. They can see you typically in broad daylight well before you see them. So I had cycled in and out of there. I got so much audio out of this area. It was ridiculous. There's one of these. I had this microphone right next to this creek where there's a swimming hole. And I had one of them come in there about every week or two and just throw, boom, big rock in the water, splash. It was like, after a while, I just nicknamed him the OCD rock thrower. This thing was just love throwing big rocks in the water, something to do. But you and I would throw like rocks, small stuff. This thing's hurling big slamming rocks that are popping in the water. So that was one fascinating thing. I get the wood knocks too. That very first audio I got, there was a wood knock, really hard one. But I get the wood knocks. You could hear them going on hunts, and you'd hear the howls, and then the wood knocks signaling between each other. So that just went on and on. So I typically always got at least one good vocalization every week. So they were just a happy clan, mind their own business, and I'm just doing audio in there. And unfortunately, it was a conservation area that was closed after dark, so you couldn't get in there after sunset. You had to get out of there. So that was kind of a bummer. So I figured, okay, well, I won't get the chance to see these guys, but at least I'm going to hear a lot of them. So that's kind of that's one of my other encounters there, wrapped into a lot of audio. Fast forward to Miguel, Sasquatch theory, and the other research teams. We've bumped into other researchers in the state too. Had another scary encounter with Miguel. Me and Miguel were up on a ridge off the Merrimack River. It was funny. It was like fall was winding down. The activity was winding down a little bit. It was early winter, and things were just kind of slow. And here comes New Year's Eve, early in the evening. I'm not gonna, I'm not one to go out and get drunk or anything. Have a champagne or something. But me and Miguel are like, hey, let's sneak down to that ridge where we're hearing some stuff. And just, it's New Year's Eve. And it got like 65 degrees, really warm. It's like, well, what the heck? Let's just go down and hang out. So we went down to this ridge together. And at that point, and this is a scary spot, by the way, there's an alpha male in this area that's ripping trees out of the ground. And that's what humbles a human being. I don't care what kind of human you are, Hulk Hogan or, Brock Lesnar, or what kind of super duper tough guy you are. When you see trees, huge trees like this big, tall, healthy trees just getting ripped out of the ground and just snapped, and you just think what that thing can do to the human body if it gets a hold of you. You're dead. You're gonna be dead. So there, self-defense. A lot of self-defense planning has to go. If you get this close to these things, not advised. But if you try to get close to these things, a little closer than most people, you better be protecting yourself, and you better know how to make a lethal shot. And it's not to the core of the body. It's straight for the head, eyes, mouth. That's it. And you better have the ammo to do it. So, and we've got the dog man thing happening in the south part of the state, and there's reports cropping up along the Missouri River as well. So the whole dog man thing was another thing that I'll get into that in a little bit. But getting back to me and Miguel, we went to this spot, and it was just before dark. It's on this ridge over the Merrimack River, and I had my parabolic in. We had duplicate gear, 2 parabolics, 2 thermals, some extra stuff as well. And I'm hearing all kinds of samurai chatter at the bottom of the ridge. They're just talking to each other. It sounds like somebody's just, speaking Portuguese or Russian at just high rate of speed. A lot of drama. If you listen to Ron Moorhead's Sierra sounds very similar to that. They do sound different though. So that's what's unique. That's one of the unique things about audio. You hear these things and you get to know the clans better, what they sound like. So in that sense, you get attached to them and you appreciate, okay, that's the alpha probably. That sounds like a juvenile. And the females typically have a higher pitch. So a lot like humans, So anyway, we're hearing these things. I'm like, okay, they're coming, man. And we're starting to hear, at the bottom of the ridge, we're starting to hear sticks and stuff like that. We're like, oh man, we were standing in their living room, literally. That trick, I said, I hang the recorders in the living room. Yeah, Miguel does the same thing. We try to get in there and get as close as we can. And we decided, well, we're going to hang out in the middle of their living room on that ridge, and all kinds of structures all around us. And man, I don't advise that. I'd say get your recordings, set your recorder and get out. But we were in there, and one of them started coming up the ridge. I'm pretty sure it was the alpha. It was big, and we saw it on the thermal, and its head was just a big old, the size of the tree. This had the size of a 5-gallon bucket head on this thing. And I just remember this big eyeball, like a tennis ball, going up and down that tree. And this thing was tree peaking at the bottom of the hill. And it had snapped. We heard it snapped something. Well, it snapped the tree, obviously. Snapped the tree. And then we hear boom, boom, 2 really fast. I'm talking back to back, boom, boom, like a drummer, boom, boom. Wood knocks. You could feel the power of that wood, how hard it hit that tree. 2 in rapid succession. And we've got another researcher from this part in Missouri here, Carter Bouchard. He's written some books. He's got a chapter in one of his books that says he thinks Sasquatch can count. 2, 3 people walk in a research area. Let's say 3 people walk in. Bam, bam, bam. 3 wood knocks. He thinks they're counting. So this has happened. Me and Miguel, just 2 of us standing on this ridge. Boom, boom. There's 2 of them. Yep, me and Miguel are standing there. If they're counting, they got the count right. So 2 hard, fast knocks. Boom, boom. And then we hear just a lot of ruckus at the bottom of this ridge, and then this elevator, big giant eyeball going up down this tree. And, you know, I was dropping, frankly, I was cursing during the live video of this. Miguel had the recording going. I'm like, holy crap. I was cussing, holy crap. We were kind of freaking out. Why? Because we didn't know if this thing was going to bluff charge or just charge up the hill. We were hoping that wouldn't happen. So fortunately, it didn't happen. They backed off. We stood our ground, and we had our bags. We had some stuff set up, some tripods, and we're just aiming down that ridge. So we stood our ground, and then once they retreated, we decided, okay, let's get out of here. So we packed up and left. Well, that was a very exciting night. New Year's Eve, 2022, just before dark. So that was a great encounter there. So yeah, the other encounters I've had, I think I counted them up one day and I just quit counting. We've had a lot of tree peeking where we go into an area and we'll just start looking around. We got eye shine, peekaboo. Okay, there's one. Is that a sighting? Full blown sighting? No, they're definitely big enough to be a Sasquatch. It's not a deer. It's up off the ground. So we've had a lot of peekaboo. We can get pretty much peekaboos anytime we want. In a lot of these areas, you go in at night with the thermal, and you can sneak in. So I think, I'm probably about, a year ago, I was like at 9. I think I'd seen them 9 times. But honestly, I really like hearing them. I do like hearing them more than I do like seeing them because they'll never let you get super close. And I kind of got a little bummed out that, man, I just like to sit at a coffee table with one of these things and have a discussion and maybe do some sign language and let's communicate with these things. In that sense, I kind of lost hope watching how standoffish and evasive they are. They just don't want to get close. They always want to back away, or they're going to come at you if you piss them off. So I've just gotten much more appreciation for audio recordings because I'm hearing them be themselves. They're in their natural element. They're talking to each other. They're chattering. So yeah, that's kind of a summary of my encounters. I do have, looping back on that research area I told you where I had one I encountered behind those 3 trees. In that same area along that creek where that pond was, one of them finally, after 2.5 years, one of them finally figured out where I was hanging my recorder. And it's a recorder just like this. And I'll give other researchers a tip, okay? This is a windscreen. That windscreen right there, if you wash it in the washing machine with your socks and other stuff, it's going to stay clean. Don't wash your windscreens. Just leave them. Let your hands sweat. You're taking it off of your recorder. You're swapping the batteries. You're downloading all the audio data. I have never washed any of my windscreens. They stink like sweat and salt, like off the palm of your hand. They have my scent on them. Well, I noticed a pattern in the last 1.5 years where they will get under my microphone and they're sniffing around my microphone. And this first happened in that research area I was telling you about. I had one come under my microphone and just hang there. I'm hearing it walking in the leaves. And it's a bipedal hanging around my microphone. And it was way high up in a tree. In an evergreen tree, hung it way up there. So it smelled it and it kept loitering around the area for a good half hour, just walking around, and sniffing. I heard it sniff. So the next night I hear on the same audio, it's timer's coming on, and I record from 9 to 2:30. That's another tip for other people who want to record these things. I found out, at least in the Ozarks, party time is like, late fall or early fall through the fall, but any time through the year. But I found out 9 p.m. to 2:30 in the morning is where I got most of my vocalizations. And in winter, it'll get dark a little earlier, so you can move it up. But typically I don't get hardly anything past 2:30 in the morning. So I just quit recording until 2:30 to 5, just not much. So anyway, the next night in that spot where that one was sniffing around that microphone, I hear somebody walking through the woods, coming back to the microphone again. But there's two of them. I can hear their footsteps, bipedal, more than one. And they got real close, and I hear one of them started laughing. So they laugh. I have one of these things on audio laughing. And I don't know why they were laughing. It's like wee hours of the night. It was 1:30, 2 in the morning. It was late. But my recorder got it. And I was like, what the heck? But they laugh just like humans do. So what does that tell you? Okay. They talk, they chatter, they scream and yell at each other, and they laugh. So do monkeys laugh? I think some monkeys do laugh, actually. Chimpanzees go crazy. So yeah, some primates do laugh. So these things laugh. They're more human-like than any other primate on the planet, in my opinion. So the more I've gotten into these things, I've really delved into primatology, studying the behavior of other apes. You get into Neanderthal and, the ancient human races. There's a lot of similarities, and they are Stone Age. They know how to use stones for tools. I have found sharp stones with sharp edge, round hand-sized stone with a nice sharp edge, and they will dig grubs out of the ground. Bam, bam, bam. They love grubs. I've got trees, lots of trees along the rivers, especially where there's bottomland and fallen timber that gets rotted. And you'll find a hole like as long as your arm by some of these trees. If you ever see a hole by a down rotten tree in river bottom area, anywhere in the country, okay, look for a hole. And if you see a stick, like a poking stick in that hole, that's what they use to poke and get grubs out of that rotten tree. And if you study that rotten tree up close, you'll see little boreholes. That's your clue that the grubs have bored their way in, and they're eating the inside of that tree, and they're around the bottom of that tree getting nutrients. And you'll get juveniles, you'll get females, and I don't know if the big alphas go off and eat grubs, but I know the smaller, lighter weight ones do. The little ones do for sure, because you won't find hardly any heavy impressions. They're on all fours typically, but they're using that stick. And I think at least 15 grub holes I found last year with this, and they all leave a stick hanging out. Why? That marks the spot. That's my grub hole. I'm gonna leave a stick in there because I know they're in there. So they leave them like a marker. At one of our Ozark Bigfoot conferences, we had another researcher. He said the same thing. He's like, I shared this grub information with just my research team, okay? And I was trying to educate them how they eat these grubs. But another researcher from the southern part of the state, near Arkansas, same thing. He had a lowland area, a lot of rotten logs, and he goes, and we found they left a stick in every hole. As soon as he said that, we all looked at each other. We're like, yeah, so they use tools. They use sticks. They can build all these teepees and fancy stuff. I see some very fancy, structures. So don't think of them like super, primitive. They're pretty intelligent. I think their structures are more symbolic than anything else. Like their teepees, you can't really sleep in them. I don't see hides anywhere. People who've walked up on them and seen them around these teepees, they're not really treating them like a perfect teepee shelter or anything like that. They must be symbolic in nature. Maybe it marks a hunting area. That's one of the things I just ran across the other day. I got one across from my ranch in the forest, and it keeps getting bigger every year. They keep stacking more sticks on it. So I'm almost thinking maybe they're counting the deer they got. Maybe they got 3 deer in here last season, and Now there's three more logs. The logs keep expanding, and now they got two other TPs showing up, starting small. And there's some mini ones, like the juvies come in there and make little mini versions of the big ones. So, yeah, I get a kick out of the juvenile structures. They're just like the big ones, little arches. Everything's just miniaturized. They mimic the adults. So, anyway, that's what I've got for you there. There's some other stuff. I'll get into the Dogman if you want to talk about Dogman. You want to hop on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely hop on that topic if you'd like to.
Sure. You got any questions for now? We'll just do a Q&A, drill in with as many questions as you want.
I really do. One, the owl sounds. Did the owls, when the hoot happened, did it trail off, or did it just like stop suddenly?
It stopped suddenly. There was 3 distinct separate owl calls from 3 different spots, very loud.
Yeah. And
anybody
who's heard an owl hoot, a true owl, they kind of have that taper off at the end of their hoot.
It's a smaller set of lungs too.
Yeah.
And by the way, recording these things in the forest, I've got a ton of normal owl calls. I know what the owls sound like. I got owls around my ranch here. But we've got a clan that passes through our area here by where I'm live now. I got, like I said, I got a teepee across the street. I can't hit it with a baseball, but pretty close. It's that close. But June 9th, June 10th, I think it was 9th, Saturday night, I think it was, 12:30 in the morning. My dog went absolutely nuts. I'm in the living room dozing off, watching television. I doze off on the sofa, and he's just going ballistic, looking out the front of the house. And he'll bark. He doesn't bark at deer. He doesn't bark at coyotes. He'll bark at strangers. But this was like super elevated, ballistic. Something's going on out there, and he went nuts. And I had to calm him down. It's like, calm down, Kiyoshi. He's a Japanese hunting dog, Kai Ken. So I calmed him down, and I got 2 of these dogs. But the male, he's an alpha for sure. He's a very protected dog. So it took me about 2 minutes to calm him down. I'm thinking, okay, even if there's someone over there, there's a campground across the street from where I live, and no one was there that weekend. It was empty. The whole area was empty. So, anyway, he's barking his head off. I calm him down. I lay back down. I'm thinking, okay, maybe someone was taking a late night walk through the park. Okay, benefit of the doubt. Lay back down. A minute later, bam, he starts freaking out again, barking his head off. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm going to go out there and see what's going on. So I walk out the backside. Whenever I have to go outside, because we got mountain lions and other predators in the forest, I always go lights out, especially for these things, because I've heard them in the area. I've heard them screaming. I just haven't bothered to keep a daily tab on them. I just don't really want to actively investigate the ones next to me. I just want to ignore them, really. I don't want to get anything going on between my house, habituation wise, and my animals. I've got horses and stuff. So I'm just no engagement with them at all. But anyway, across the street, I go out there. I'm standing right up next to the edge of my house, looking straight across the street where my dog was just opening up. And I got the most obnoxious, loud. I mean, this was so loud, it just hit off my chest. That's how loud it was. It was like that. Like I'd say a monkey trying to do a half of a barred owl call. It wasn't, like a small little. This was a loud, just like that. 20 seconds went by, and I'm standing there. I'm like, holy crap. 20 seconds later, repeat, same thing. Boom, super loud. Two obnoxious barred owl calls in a row. 30 seconds later, over there, across from the teepee, but down off to my left, on the edge of the forest, all these eggs, they were hiding in the wood line. You can't see them. One back over here, same thing. Awful, stupid, obnoxiously loud, half of a barred owl call. They were doing the same call, one here, one there. As soon as this one finished, one behind my ranch, there's a ribbon of woods that leads to a conservation area. That one there, I got one from behind my ranch. So this really freaked me out. I'm thinking, oh, great. You hear the stories about the Squatches follow the researchers home and they find out where they live. I thought that's what was going on. My dog and my cat are upstairs having it out. Anyway, so I hear these things going at it, and I'm thinking, great, these things have figured out where I live. So I'd say for 48 to 72 hours, I'm thinking, okay, they found me. They followed me back to my ranch. The river that I researched, the Merrimack River, is just, I've got a watershed that leads down to it. And I know they come up from there, come up the creeks, and I know they're passing through because I see tree breaks, there's teepees. They're passing through and making their way to the Missouri River on the north of me. There's a corridor here, and then we've got a lot of sightings on Bigfoot mapping project around this area. You just go west of St. Louis, there's a big hunk of forest west of St. Louis. Missouri River up north, Merrimack down south, a lot of woods right there. That's all they need. And there's tons of deer, and they closed the parks. No deer hunting, managed deer hunts only. So the deer population has exploded. There's plenty of deer for them to eat here. So fortunately, we've got not fortunately and unfortunately, I had infrared sensors around my property because we got a mountain lion roaming around, and it has started eating people's pets. So I'm thinking, well, I've got the property surrounded by infrared sensors already. Great. Now they're hanging around, but they don't come up close to my ranch house. I got one rock, like softball sized rock, near my walkout basement, just to the side of one of my sensors, just sitting there by a pine tree. This rock is not from anywhere on my property. It came from the river. It's a river rock. But they will slowly sneak in and probe, man. I'm telling you, these are sneaky boogers. So they left a rock. I responded by leaving some marbles over there. They didn't touch my marbles, but I put a little critter cam, like a no glow, one of the newer ones, aimed right at it. I figured this guy's gonna try to sneak in and dodge my sensors, because when these sensors go off, I can hear them inside the house, north, south, east, west. They make a unique sound. So I know where anybody's coming from if they come in at night. And I've got 365 infrared security cameras around the ranch to keep an eye on my horses at night. So I got cameras to keep them away already. So anybody that's got these things around your house, lights, cameras, I got the whole works. It's all in place.
Yeah. Let me ask you. So when you and Miguel hung that mic, in that one area, and you guys said you didn't leave the area, you guys kind of hung around. How close to that mic were you guys?
Well, what we typically do, we will hang two or three, usually at least two, sometimes three microphones. We like to triangulate on where they're at. So Miguel might put one on ridge A, and I'll put one over on ridge B, down the forest road and out on another ridge. So, and we'll compare. Miguel will say, "Hey, I got something going on my side." And I might come back the following week and say, "Yeah, they're hanging a little closer to this ridge now." So we use multiple these recorders, and we rotate them. If it's an area that's got a lot of activity, we'll swap one out with another one and take the other one with us, and you can take the SD card out and just swap SD cards and change the batteries. I just actually keep two or three of these in my backpack. I just take the whole thing down. One's already preloaded, pre-timed. I just hang it up. So I literally just swap the whole thing out. So yeah, we're collecting data every time we go out. It's either bare minimum audio. It all starts with the audio.
Yeah.
If you can't hear them, I won't. I got to the point now where a lot of people, hey, let's go squatching. I really don't have time just to go roaming through the woods. I will not go unless I got active intelligence with audio.
Yeah.
That's when I know they're in there, and someone's taking their time to find out, okay, here's the general area, let's go. You do the same thing in the military. You're going to go engaging an objective. You're not going to go roaming in the countryside. You're going to get intelligence.
As much intel as you can.
This is active intelligence. So a good number of people who get into this particular field just like walking through the woods and exploring and looking at stuff. But anybody can do that 24/7, 365. You can waste decades doing that stuff. I got some people, although I watched the way they research, and I don't think they're ever going to find one.
Right.
I don't think they'll ever get a deer if they want to go hunt a deer. You got some people who just are not natural woodsmen and have nothing tactical in their brain. So you got to really, really think. I'm telling you, you got to think very tactical when it comes to these things. Every tiny little thing you do. And I try to mix it up. This is just my personal. Some people, I do a mix of both. I'll set up a campfire, go to the same location. We'll hear them around. We'll hear them playing in the woods. Let's let them come to you approach.
Yeah.
Well, the other half of me likes to track them. I like to sneak up on them. And the only warning on that one is when you do it, if they do see you, they get pissed. They do not like to be snuck up on, but it can be done.
Joe, I definitely want to have you back on, and let's save Dogman for your second time coming on, because I really, I'm so fascinated by the research you're doing. When you go out with your research team with Miguel, and it's funny, like you said, you like to track them. And I'm sure this as well as I do, both being prior military. Marine's primary job as a rifleman. You learn basic, land nav and things like that. Being a security police officer, I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, learned air-based ground defense, ground combat, learned, land nav, night movements, all that type of stuff as well. If anybody thinks that they're going to go into one of these creatures' living room or backyard, however you want to refer to it, and think that they don't already know you're there, we're kidding ourselves.
Yeah.
People are absolutely kidding yourself, and you're 100% correct. Just because you wear a tack vest doesn't mean you're tactical. Just because you carry a firearm doesn't necessarily make you an expert with that firearm. It takes years and years of absolute failure to come up with the right formula that's been tried and proved itself to be true, like you've been doing, to gather the evidence that you have.
Yeah.
And you don't stop. You keep going out. If it doesn't work, you switch something else up.
Yeah.
And they know as soon as you enter the area, they already know you're there.
Yeah. Well, you're typically driving down the same road, or you're coming in the same trail.
Mm-hmm.
So they look at the usual routes where humans travel.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be predictable and you're going to come in on those common routes, okay. The other side of the coin is, they always like to be in control. They want to see that car coming down.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see that trail, and they'll notice you trying to come in other areas as well. They'll notice that, but there are times when we've just snuck up on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what, diversions work.
Mm-hmm.
You got someone down at the bottom of the ridge causing a distraction. And I mean a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Being louder than they should be.
Just, hey,
yep.
They can be distracted. They are vulnerable to diversions. I'll just say that. We caught when me and Miguel went up on that ridge that day, there was a shit show, pardon my French, going on down at the bottom of the ridge from humans.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of activity further on down, and they were watching them. That clan was watching those humans down there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of dry running, doing a mental dry run of everything as we were up on that ridge. And I said, well, as soon as it gets dark, Miguel, those people, they're going to bug out. They're going to head out. They're going to stop making noise, and they're going to get in their cars and leave. And hopefully they'll come up the hill back here.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what happened.
Yep.
So some researchers will put out what we call decoy tents, things like that. Those are cool too. They'll put like leave human clothes inside the tent. So these things sniff. They will sniff around a tent. Does it smell like a human in there? They can smell like a bear, man. The Native Americans say these things can smell you way out.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to go scent free. I'm talking. I use cedar oil, cedar spray, game scents, whatever it takes to mask your scent. Come in downwind. You can't sneak up on them. And if you got a diversion, that's a plus.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a lot of other tactics I use. I don't want to give them out to people because I don't want anybody to get hurt.
Right.
People that are in the military, I was in aviation, but we were the Uber service for special forces, Navy SEALs and Force Recon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was chasing people in the late 80s in the Persian Gulf with night vision 24/7 for several months straight.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a continuation of night vision that I had used in the military, sneaking up and catching people.
Yeah.
It's just instead of humans this time, we got these primates running through the forest. It's like the ultimate game of Pokemon Go, quite literally. A lot of people, it's like the ultimate game of Pokemon Go.
Yep.
But you're chasing a big, giant Jurassic Bigfoot around, or a clan of them.
Right.
It is high adrenaline for people who know how to use advanced tactics for triangulating. If you can triangulate on humans very well, you can triangulate on these things.
Yeah.
And I know just from staring at them through the little peekaboo action, I know they've been shot at. And they come up behind people's houses. I do have audio from one of our southern areas. It was late. I was recording through the night that night. I think it was one of those. I was learning what the prime time of the night was through the winter. And this one was like, I think it was 2:45 in the morning. And I heard this loud howls going off a couple hollers away. And like 3 or 4 loud howls. And then somebody shot at them. And they shut up. So
Yeah.
I know there's people that live in the Ozarks in these remote areas, and I've heard their dogs just cowering, scared to death, barking all night, and they leave their dogs outside. They'll chain them up and they'll leave them. But there's a lot of missing dog reports in these places where we go. That's one of the big clues. You got missing dog signs. You don't ever leave your dogs out at night. Yeah, those are chicken wing snacks for a Sasquatch. The very first thing they try to get. Your dog is your security system.
Mm-hmm.
The dog barks. You got a chicken coop. That dog's it's not going to last long if you're leaving your dog out.
That's right.
Forget it. They'll eat your dog first or kill your dog, and then they'll get your chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have lights, you better get lights and infrared sensors around your property.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are very well. They're just like the sneakiest human. They're sneaky humans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're highly disciplined and primarily nocturnal. Well, that's another thing with the researchers I know. A lot of them are just nodding off. They can't keep up with these things.
Yeah.
They're starting to nod off at midnight. They're like, Jesus, I got this nice thermal scope, and you've just passed out by the campfire.
Yeah.
And then the party started right after you passed out. They will wait for the humans to pass out almost every time. So I'm a light sleeper. Miguel's a light sleeper.
Yeah.
Anybody who's a light sleeper has a leg up.
Yep.
Okay? You got a leg up tactfully. If you're any kind of a hunter and you're a light sleeper and you doze off in your tree stand and you hear something, you're awake.
Or if you suffer from insomnia like I do, and you're up all night long.
Yeah. So if I go deep in the bush beyond the wood line and I will not go unless it's kind of the old Marine rule. You're going to share a foxhole with your buddy. You trust him with your life. Same thing.
Yeah.
You need a light sleeper. You better be very comfortable with firearms.
Yeah.
And we do target practice, by the way.
Mhm.
We don't care what it is. If we have to put something down, no matter what it is, it could be. We're more afraid of feral hogs than anything else
Oh yeah.
because they're quite rampant. They're moving up into Missouri. I got them they moved up close to me now.
They are
And
nasty animals.
they're crazy, and they'll just gobble. They'll kill your dog. They'll kill you.
Yep.
You know.
And they'll do tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage to property, crops, livestock. I've seen video of a big boar walking off with a lamb in its mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. So, but hey, Joe, it was so great having you on tonight. I truly appreciate you. And I would love for you to come back again and really dive into, because you said there has been just an influx of Dogman reports. And, I would love to hear about those, and definitely have you back for a second episode if you're willing.
Sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
we are getting a spike of those. Let me just put it this way: they've always been here. People are even more bashful and quiet about talking about them because most people talk about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And they've seen the Bigfoot out in the country. And now we've got people who are just, no, this thing had ears on top of its head.
Yeah.
And all fours, standing up, big. So yeah, it's as far as seeing one, I haven't seen one myself, but we processed the reports, and now we're delving into one. We're going this weekend actually to an area where there's a Dogman Road. So I believe Miguel is probably going to film that one and put it on his channel.
Yeah, it'd be
Sasquatch
fantastic.
Theory channel. So if he doesn't film it, there's another team there that's going to be there as well. So it might be on two different channels. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm subbed to Sasquatch Theory.
Yeah.
So I love watching Miguel stuff.
Yeah, he's very good with his cinematography and interviewing. And we work very closely on research together, and it's just a joy to work with him. We're just hopping through the forest, having a great time, watching every aspect of the Bigfoot phenomenon that we know. And now inadvertently we're getting pulled into this Dogman thing just because they're out there. And you keep hearing about it, and the reports keep coming at us. So we're kind of getting pulled sideways into it. Yeah, we'll talk more a little bit about it.
Yeah, perfect. Well, if you want to hang out in the lobby for a second, that'd be great.
Sure.
I'll get right to you.
Okay.
All right, guys, that was Joe. You guys, I'm telling you right now, that to me, that was just a great interview, great stories, great information. You guys, a lot of information Joe passed on, and if you're really looking to get into research and going out in the field and do some field research, he gave you a lot of pointers. The biggest one though is make sure you go out with more than one person. Be comfortable with your environment, be comfortable with the person you're with, be comfortable with firearms and your equipment and gear that you're using. Be mindful of where you're at. Let people know where you're going to be. And yeah, have a great time doing it, but be safe while you're doing it. So you guys, again, that's my show for tonight. If you guys have had an encounter and you'd like to come on the show, shoot me an email at thecryptidpodcast72@gmail.com. Again, thecryptidpodcast72@gmail.com. As my buddy Josh from Mysteries Unknown always likes to say, everybody stay prayed up. And as I always like to say, remember you guys, a legend always starts with a sighting. You guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you next time.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?